The Hermes handbag caught Lauren in the ribs before she registered Vince's laugh. She stumbled backward, her pregnant belly twisting as instinct took over, her body trying to shield the life inside. Her shoulder hit the glass display case with a crack that sang through the boutique, designer perfume bottles rattling like nervous witnesses. Crystal chandeliers swam above her, diamonds and gold blurring into stars as she slid down the case to the polished floor. Around her, the afternoon shoppers froze mid-transaction, their shopping bags from Chanel and Cartier hanging forgotten as they stared at the pregnant woman crumpled on the floor, her simple cotton dress riding up, her dark hair falling from its practical ponytail. "Look at you." Vince Perkins stood over her, his voice projecting across the boutique like he was delivering a keynote. He looked unrecognizable now, Tom Ford suit. Patek Philippe watch, a woman in Louboutins clutching his arm with nails that had never typed a business proposal at 3 a.m. or skipped meals to save for rent. "Did you really think you could walk into my store? Did you think I wouldn't see you waddling around, pretending that mistake in your belly makes you respectable?" Lauren's hands wrapped around her stomach. 7 months of growing life that suddenly felt impossibly fragile. 7 months pregnant, alone, and the man who'd stolen her future was standing over her like she was something tracked in on his shoe. The humiliation burned hotter than the pain radiating from her ribs. She pressed her palms against the cold floor, tried to push herself up, but her arms shook, her center of gravity betraying her. "Don't even think about it," Vince hissed, his Italian leather shoe hovering near her side. "Stay down there. That's where people like you shop anyway, clearance racks and thrift stores." The boutique staff whispered behind their hands. Phones appeared. Someone was definitely recording this, and it would be on social media within the hour. The crazy pregnant ex, making a scene in a luxury store she couldn't afford. Lauren's vision blurred, panic clawing up her throat because she couldn't let him hurt her baby. She couldn't let this moment become her daughter's origin story. She couldn't. Her phone. She'd been gripping it since the moment she'd spotted Vince through the store window 20 minutes ago, her instinct screaming danger loud enough that her thumb had moved on muscle memory. The same paranoia that had kept her awake for months, that had made her program one number for emergencies. One number she'd sworn she'd never use, because using it would mean admitting the catastrophic mistake she'd made 6 months ago when she'd walked away. Her thumb found the contact labeled "Emergency, only, do not use." She'd saved Jungwoo's number 6 months ago under that name, a digital barrier, a reminder to herself that his world was too dangerous, too dark, too consuming. But desperation didn't care about boundaries. The phone rang once. "Lauren." The voice that answered wasn't a question. It was a statement, low and controlled, with an edge like surgical steel. Jungwoo didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't ask where she was. The silence on the other end of the line was the kind that precedes avalanches. "I'm at the Hermes boutique," she whispered, her voice fracturing. "Vince's—" The line went dead. For exactly 38 seconds, nothing happened. Vince was still performing for his audience. His girlfriend was recording. The sales associates were pretending not to stare. And Lauren was still on the ground, cradling her belly, and trying not to cry on marble that reflected 1,000 crystal lights. Then the air pressure changed. It started as a disturbance from the main entrance, a ripple of unease that spread through the luxury shoppers like a shockwave. The sound of car doors slamming in sequence outside, footsteps synchronized and purposeful, moving through the private shopping complex with the inevitability of a tide. Lauren looked up, her vision clearing just enough to see them. 8 men in black suits. No store uniforms. No security badges. Just tailored authority cutting through the pastel shopping bags and champagne-sipping clientele like sharks through a coral reef. And at the center, moving with the kind of stillness that made dangerous men step aside, was Jungwoo. He was exactly as she remembered, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that belonged in executive boardrooms or crime documentaries depending on who was watching. His dark hair was slicked back from his forehead, revealing sharp features and eyes that didn't blink, didn't scan the room, didn't acknowledge the crowd or the luxury goods or anything except the woman on the ground and the man standing over her. Vince didn't notice at first. He was too busy savoring his victory, too drunk on his new money and the validation of his socialite girlfriend. But she noticed. Her phone lowered slowly. Her face was drained of color. "Vince," she whispered, tugging his sleeve with manicured urgency. "Vince, we need to leave. Now." "Why would we?" Vince turned, and the words crystallized in his throat. Jung-woo stopped 6 feet away from them. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. His presence alone seemed to lower the temperature, to turn the bright boutique into a vacuum where only his will had permission to exist. One of his men shifted forward, a silent question in his stance, but Jung-woo raised a single hand. "Wait." His eyes left Vince and dropped to Lauren. The shift in his expression was microscopic, a hairline fracture in granite, but she saw it. Concern. Fury. Something else she'd spent 6 months running from because acknowledging it meant accepting how deeply she'd wounded them both. "Can you stand?" he asked, his voice quiet in a way that made the question sound like a vow, not a command. Lauren nodded, not trusting her voice. She tried to push herself up again, and this time, Jung-woo moved. He closed the distance in 3 strides, his hand extending toward her with a precision that contradicted the violence coiled in his shoulders. She took it, his fingers wrapped around hers warm, steady, certain, and he lifted her to her feet as though she and their child weighed nothing at all. "I have you," he murmured, his other hand hovering near the small of her back but not touching, giving her space to find her balance, to choose. "I've always had you. Welcome to Dora's romance stories. Are you listening right now? Help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter by hitting that subscribe button." The boutique manager appeared from the back office, her expression morphing from professional concern to pure terror in the span of a heartbeat. She'd seen the men in black suits. She'd seen Jung-woo, and whatever training her Mez corporate had given her about handling difficult situations clearly hadn't covered this. "Sir, she started, but Jung-woo's eyes cut to her with surgical precision. "Close the store," he said quietly. "Now." It wasn't a request. The manager's hand was already reaching for her radio, before her brain caught up with her body's survival instinct. "Security. Initiate code black for Boutique 7. Full closure. Immediate." Vince finally found his voice, though it came out strangled. "You can't just this is a public store. You can't kick out paying customers." "Paying customers?" Jung-woo's attention shifted to Vince for the first time, and Lauren watched her ex-fiancé physically recoil. "You're right. Let me clarify the situation for you, Mr. Perkins." One of Jung-woo's men, a sharp-faced operative Lauren vaguely remembered as Mingjun, produced a tablet and handed it to his boss with practiced efficiency. Jung-woo didn't look at it. He didn't need to. Sterling Luxury Complex. 47 retail spaces. Purchased through Hainel Holdings 18 months ago. His voice remained conversational, almost pleasant, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Hermès Boutique 7, where we're currently standing. Cartier next door. The Chanel flagship 2 floors down. The private dining club on the roof where you had lunch today, yes. I know where you've been all of it." He paused, letting the words settle like sediment. "Mine." The color drained from Vince's face. His girlfriend had already released his arm, putting distance between them with small, desperate steps. "So when you ask if I can close my store," Jung-woo continued, his tone sharpening just slightly, "the answer is yes. When you ask if I can remove trespassing trash from my property, the answer is also yes." He handed the tablet back to Minjun without breaking eye contact with Vince. "And when you put your hands on what belongs to me, Mr. Perkins, the question becomes not what I can do, but what I'll choose not to do in front of witnesses." Around them, security guards were already ushering shocked shoppers toward the exits. The manager had disappeared entirely. Vince's girlfriend was frantically texting someone, probably her lawyer or her father or anyone with enough power to extract her from this nightmare. She's not. Vince stammered, his earlier confidence evaporating like champagne bubbles. She's not what? Jungwoo's voice dropped to something barely above a whisper, and Lauren felt the air pressure drop with it. Not carrying my child? Not someone I've protected from a distance for 6 months while she convinced herself she was better off alone? Not the woman you just assaulted in front of 37 witnesses and 4 security cameras? Jungwoo took a single step toward Vince, and despite the 5 feet still between them, Vince stumbled backward into a display of silk scarves. I know everything about you, Vince Perkins. I know about the business proposals you stole from Lauren's laptop while she was sleeping. I know about the investors you courted with her market research, her financial projections, her 5-year plan. I know your new wealth is built on intellectual property theft, fraud, and the systematic destruction of the woman who loved you. He tilted his head slightly. I've known for 4 months. I've been waiting for the right moment to dismantle everything you've built. But then you made a critical mistake. What mistake? Vince whispered. You touched her. Jungwoo turned back to Lauren, his expression softening so abruptly it was like watching a sword sheath itself. Can you walk? Lauren nodded, though her legs still felt unsteady. Jungwoo studied her for a moment, then made a decision. In one fluid motion, he swept her into his arms, one arm beneath her knees, the other supporting her back, lifting her with the kind of care usually reserved for handling explosives. I can walk, Lauren protested weakly, though she didn't struggle. I know, Jungwoo said, already moving toward the exit. But I've watched you walk alone for 6 months. Not today. Behind them, Min-jun stepped into Vince's personal space. Mr. Park suggests you find new investors. Yours will be withdrawing by morning. His smile was surgical. They don't appreciate being defrauded. As Jungwoo carried Lauren through the boutique doors into the main complex corridor, she caught a final glimpse of Vince collapsed against the scarf display, his girlfriend already gone, his empire crumbling before it had fully formed. The last thing Lauren heard before the boutique doors sealed shut was Min-jun's pleasant voice. Have a wonderful afternoon, Mr. Perkins. Security will escort you out through the service entrance. We wouldn't want you embarrassing yourself in front of the public shoppers. CTA. Vince thinks money gives him the right to abuse women. If you believe real men protect, not hurt, hit like and subscribe. Comment real strength protects if you're not siding with a bully like Vince. The estate materialized from the hillside like something conjured from architectural fantasy, all clean lines and dark glass, hidden behind gates that looked decorative until you noticed the reinforced steel and biometric scanners. Lauren had forgotten the weight of this place, how it managed to feel both like a sanctuary and a statement of power. The car glided through 3 separate security checkpoints before stopping beneath a covered portico, where 2 more men in dark suits waited with the practiced stillness of trained soldiers. Jungwoo carried her through doors that whispered shut behind them, into a foyer where marble and warm wood somehow coexisted without competing. He didn't stop until they reached what Lauren remembered as the East Wing, the private quarters, and settled her onto a leather sofa so soft it felt like an embrace. Dr. Choi is already here, he said, stepping back to give her space. She'll examine you and the baby. Anything you need, anything at all, tell Min-jun. He gestured to the sharp-faced operative who'd appeared in the doorway. I'll be upstairs handling Vince's situation. Jungwoo. Lauren's voice stopped him mid-turn. Thank you. For coming. For... She gestured vaguely at everything. The rescue, the revelation, the fact that he'd dropped whatever empire building he'd been doing to answer a call from the woman who'd walked away from him. His expression shifted, something unguarded flickering across his features before the armor slid back into place. We'll talk after, Doctor. Choi clears you and the baby. It wasn't cold, but it wasn't warm either. I was careful. Rest, Lauren. Dr. Choi turned out to be a woman in her 50s with efficient hands and kind eyes who'd clearly treated enough of Jungwoo's people to remain unrattled by the circumstances. She examined Lauren thoroughly, checking vitals, listening to the baby's heartbeat, pressing gentle fingers along Lauren's ribs where the handbag had connected. Bruising, but no breaks, Dr. Choi announced finally. Baby's heartbeat is strong. Blood pressure is elevated. But that's expected given the stress. She packed her equipment with practiced efficiency. You're both fine, Miss James. But no more luxury store confrontations, yes? After Dr. Choi left, Lauren found herself alone in the vast room, watching sunset paint the floor-to-ceiling windows in shades of amber and rust. The baby kicked a flutter against her ribs that she'd come to recognize as reassurance. We're okay, her daughter seemed to say. We survived. The door opened without knocking. Jung-woo entered, carrying a tray with tea and what looked like her favorite ginger cookies from the Korean bakery she'd mentioned loving exactly once, 6 months ago. He set it on the table beside her, then lowered himself into the chair across from the sofa, close enough to talk, far enough to not crowd her. You remembered, Lauren said softly, nodding at the cookies. I remember everything. He poured tea with the kind of precision that suggested this was him actively choosing gentleness. How you take your coffee, that you hate seafood but pretend to tolerate it at business dinners, that you read mystery novels when you're anxious and rewatch the same 3 movies when you're sad. He handed her the cup. I remember the exact expression you had when you told me you were leaving. Lauren accepted the tea, letting the warmth seep into her hands. You let me go. You asked me to. Jung-woo leaned back, and for the first time since the boutique, he looked tired. You stood in this house, in that exact spot by the windows, and you told me you couldn't breathe in my world. That loving me felt like drowning. His jaw tightened. You said you needed normal, safe, a life where your children wouldn't grow up surrounded by armed guards and blood money. I was scared, Lauren admitted. Your world, the violence, the constant danger, the fact that people want you dead and I'd become a target just by standing next to you. It was too much. I couldn't. Her hand moved to her stomach. I couldn't raise a child in that, so you chose Vince. There was no judgment in his voice, just observation. Stable, predictable Vince with his management consulting job and his 5-year plan. I chose wrong. Lauren's laugh was bitter. Turns out the monster wasn't the man who was honest about his darkness. It was the one who hid his cruelty behind a corporate smile. Jung-woo was quiet for a long moment, studying his own tea like it held answers. When you left, I wanted to follow you. Minjun had teams ready within the hour. We could have made sure you stayed safe, kept you close whether you wanted it or not. He looked up, and the rawness in his eyes made Lauren's breath catch. But that would have made me no different from Vince, wouldn't it? Taking away your choice because I thought I knew better? So you just let me go. I'll let you choose. He set his cup down with quiet precision. But I didn't leave you unprotected. There's been someone watching your apartment since the day you moved in. Someone following you to work, to the grocery store, to every doctor's appointment. You think it was a coincidence that the man who tried to rob you 3 months ago suddenly changed his mind and ran? Or that Vince never showed up at your door despite knowing where you lived? Lauren stared at him. You've been watching me for 6 months? Protecting you. Jung-woo corrected. There's a difference. I didn't interfere with your life, didn't try to contact you, didn't stop you from building whatever future you wanted with whoever you chose. His voice hardened slightly. But I made sure no one could hurt you, even if that someone was yourself through sheer stubbornness about accepting help. Lauren didn't know whether to be angry or moved. That's controlling. Yes, he didn't deny it. It's also the only way I could sleep at night knowing you were out there alone, pregnant, vulnerable, convinced you were better off without me. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I'm not a good man, Lauren. I've never pretended to be. My hands are stained with blood and business dealings that would give you nightmares. But I keep my people safe. I keep what's mine protected. His eyes held hers. And you've been mine since the moment you looked at me like I was something other than a monster. I never thought you were a monster, Lauren whispered. You thought my world would make you one. Jung-woo stood, crossing to the windows where sunset was fading into twilight. You weren't entirely wrong. This life requires compromises, moral flexibility, the ability to make decisions that keep you awake at night. He turned back to her. But I would have kept you separate from that. I did keep you separate. You never saw the worst of what I do. Because you hid it from me. Because I loved you enough to carry that darkness alone. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. I still do. The baby kicked again, and Lauren winced slightly. Jung-woo was beside her instantly, his hand hovering near her stomach but not touching, waiting for permission. She took his hand and placed it where their daughter was moving, and watched his entire expression transform, the dangerous crime lord disappearing, replaced by something odd and fragile. She's strong, he murmured. She'd have to be, Lauren said. Look at her parents. Jung-woo's thumb traced a gentle circle over her stomach. I won't force you to stay. When Vince is handled and you're safe, if you want to leave again, I'll let you. But Lauren, he met her eyes. I will never stop protecting you. Never stop watching over our daughter. Never stop being the barrier between you and anyone who tries to hurt you. His hand tightened slightly. That's not a negotiation. That's just reality. Lauren covered his hand with hers. What if I don't want to leave? For the first time since the boutique, Jung-woo smiled, small and real and devastating. Then we'll figure out how to build a world where our daughter can breathe, and you don't feel like you're drowning. He stood, pulling back before the moment could grow too heavy. But first, we deal with Vince. And I think you're going to want to be awake for what comes next. Morning arrived with the kind of golden light that made the estate's glass walls feel like they were dissolving into the sky. Lauren woke on the sofa where she'd fallen asleep, a cashmere throw tucked around her that hadn't been there when she'd closed her eyes. Through the windows, she could see Minjun stationed near the garden entrance, his presence as permanent and unobtrusive as furniture. Jung-woo appeared in the doorway holding a breakfast tray, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, his version of casual, though Lauren suspected even his pajamas were probably tailored. You didn't have to let me sleep out here, Lauren said, pushing herself upright and immediately regretting the movement as her bruised ribs protested. You fell asleep mid-sentence. He set the tray across her lap. Perfectly poached eggs, fresh fruit, toast cut into triangles the way she preferred. And you looked peaceful for the first time since I picked you up off that boutique floor. I wasn't going to interrupt that. Lauren studied him as she reached for the tea. There were shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept at all. You've been working all night. Vince's investor portfolio required attention. Jung-woo settled into the chair across from her with his own cup of coffee. Also, I thought you might want to see something. Evidence that I wasn't lying about the surveillance. He produced a tablet from the side table and unlocked it with his thumbprint. For a moment, he hesitated, the device resting on his knee like he was reconsidering the entire conversation. Then he handed it to her. I need you to understand this isn't an obsession, he said quietly. It's protection. There's a difference. Lauren took the tablet, and her breath caught. The screen displayed a folder labeled simply, Lauren, Security Detail, with dates spanning the last 6 months. She tapped the first file. A photograph opened. Her apartment building, taken from across the street at dusk. The angle was high, probably from a neighboring rooftop. In the window of her third-floor unit, she could see herself moving through the kitchen, visible only as a silhouette backlit by warm interior light. October 14th, Jung-woo said, his voice clinical, like he was briefing an operative rather than confessing to 6 months of covert surveillance. 3 days after you moved into that apartment. I needed to verify the security of the building. 2 exits, 1 fire escape. No doorman, locks that a determined amateur could bypass in under 3 minutes. He leaned forward slightly. I had them replaced the next day while you were at work. Better deadbolts, reinforced strike plates. You probably never noticed. Lauren swiped to the next image. This one showed her at the grocery store, reaching for produce, completely unaware of the camera. The timestamp read 11:47 a.m., a Saturday. She remembered that day she'd been buying ingredients for soup, trying to convince herself she enjoyed cooking for one. November 2nd. Jung-woo continued. The man standing 3 people behind you in the checkout line had been following you for 2 blocks. A small-time addict looking for an easy target pregnant woman, distracted. Probably had cash. He reached over and swiped to the next photo, which showed the same man being escorted into an alley by 2 large figures in dark jackets. He was given a choice: rehab facility fully funded, or broken hands. He chose rehab. Last I checked, he's 14 weeks sober. Lauren's hands trembled slightly as she scrolled through more images. Her morning walk to the bus stop. The library where she'd spent afternoons researching how to rebuild her business. The clinic where she had her prenatal appointments. And in every single photograph, somewhere in the frame, sometimes barely visible, were Jung-woo's people. A man reading a newspaper on a bench. A woman in workout clothes jogging past. A sedan parked across the street with tinted windows. December 9th, Jung-woo said, as she reached a particularly clear photo of herself sitting alone in a coffee shop, her laptop open, one hand resting on her growing belly. You'd been working on a new business proposal for 4 hours. You looked exhausted. I almost came in. His voice softened. I got as far as the parking lot before I turned around. You'd made your choice. I had to respect that. How many people? Lauren asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Watching you? 3 rotating teams, 8-hour shifts. He took a sip of coffee, his expression unreadable. Overkill, probably. But you're carrying my child, and there are people in this world who would love to hurt me through you. I wasn't taking chances. Lauren reached for another photo and froze. This one showed her sitting on a park bench, face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking. She remembered that day too, the one where she'd finally admitted to herself that leaving Jung-woo had been a mistake, that Vince's charm had been a facade, that she'd traded dangerous honesty for comfortable lies. January 3rd, Jung-woo said quietly. You cried for 47 minutes. I watched from the car. He set his coffee down with careful precision. That was the hardest day, knowing you were hurting and knowing I couldn't fix it without violating your boundaries. You could have just talked to me, Lauren said, though even as the words left her mouth, she knew how unfair they were. Could I? Jung-woo's eyes met hers. You left because my world terrified you. Showing up at your door demanding to be let back in would have proved every fear you had that I'm controlling, possessive, unable to let you make your own choices. He gestured at the tablet. This way, you gotta build your life. Make your mistakes. Learn that monsters come in many forms, and suits and smiles don't make someone safe. Lauren scrolled to the most recent photos. One from 2 days ago showed her window shopping outside the luxury complex, and her stomach twisted as she realized Jung-woo's people had been there even then, watching, waiting. Another showed Vince entering the Hermes boutique 15 minutes before she did. You knew he'd be there, she said slowly. I knew he lunched at the complex every Thursday. I knew he shopped at that specific boutique because he's petty enough to enjoy spending money in stores his ex-fiancée can't afford. Jung-woo's jaw tightened. What I didn't predict was that you'd go there. When my guy called to say you were heading toward Vince's location, I was already in the car. How long would it have taken you to get there normally? From my office? 22 minutes in traffic. His expression darkened. I made it in 9. I broke at least 6 traffic laws and may have traumatized several pedestrians. Lauren found herself almost smiling despite everything. You could have been arrested. I'd burn this entire city down before I let him hurt you. Jung-woo said it matter-of-factly, like he was commenting on the weather. An arrest would have been inconvenient, but I have lawyers for that. What I don't have is... He stopped himself, looking away. I don't have a replacement for you, Lauren. There's no backup plan. No acceptable alternative. It's you or it's no one. Lauren set the tablet aside, her head spinning from the revelation that she'd never actually been alone. that every moment of isolation had been an illusion carefully maintained for her own peace of mind. Part of her wanted to be angry this was surveillance, invasion of privacy, control disguised as protection. But another part, the part that had felt Vince's violence, that had feared for her daughter's safety, that had spent 6 months looking over her shoulder, felt something else entirely. Relief. "I should be furious with you," she said finally. "You should be," Jungwoo agreed. "This is a violation. It's obsessive. It's probably illegal." He stood, moving to the windows where morning light carved his features into sharp relief. "But I'd do it again. I'd do worse. Because the alternative, the version where I respect your boundaries so thoroughly that Vince actually hurts you or our daughter, that's not a world I can live in." Lauren pushed the throw aside and stood, wincing only slightly as her ribs reminded her they needed time to heal. She crossed to where Jungwoo stood rigid by the window, his shoulders tight with tension. "For 6 months," she said quietly, "I thought I was completely alone. I thought I'd made the biggest mistake of my life and would have to live with it forever. I thought no one was coming to save me." "You didn't need saving," Jungwoo said. "You're stronger than you think." "But I wasn't alone." Lauren reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "That matters. You let me go while still keeping me safe, that matters." She squeezed his hand. "Thank you for being my guardian, even when I didn't know I needed one." Jungwoo turned to face her fully, and the expression on his face was so raw it made her chest ache. "Always," he said simply. "Whether you're here or gone, whether you want me or hate me, I will always stand between you and anything that tries to hurt you." His free hand came up to cup her face with devastating gentleness. "That's not negotiable. That's just who I am when it comes to you. CTA." Jungwoo watched over her when she felt most alone. If you believe everyone deserves a guardian angel, hit subscribe. Comment. I stand for loyalty. If you hate people who abandon their partners like Vince. The estate had a kitchen that looked like it belonged in an architectural magazine, all dark granite and gleaming appliances that probably cost more than Lauren's former apartment. She'd wandered there mid-afternoon, restless from sitting still, and found Jungwoo standing at the marble island with his sleeves rolled up, surrounded by ingredients that suggested he was planning something more elaborate than sandwiches. "You cook now?" Lauren asked from the doorway, genuinely surprised. Jungwoo glanced up from the vegetables he was slicing with professional precision. "I've always cooked. You just never saw it because I had a chef." He gestured to the stool across from him. "Sit. Doctor's orders were rest, not wandering around my house like you're casing it for security weaknesses. Your house has 17 security cameras just in the hallways." I counted. Lauren eased herself onto the stool, watching as he returned to his prep work. "What are you making?" "Myeokguk." He didn't look up from the wakame seaweed he was rinsing. "Seaweed soup. It's traditional for pregnant women in Korea, supposed to be healing, good for recovery." His knife moved through scallions with rhythmic efficiency. "My mother made it for me when I was sick as a child, before everything got complicated." Lauren rarely heard him mention his family. In all their time together, Jungwoo had kept his past locked behind walls even thicker than the ones surrounding this estate. "You never told me about your mother. She died when I was 14. He set the knife down with careful precision, his jaw tight. "Pneumonia, officially. Actually, it was poverty and pride, and a husband who spent medicine money on gambling debts." He began adding ingredients to a pot with measured movements. "She used to make this soup every birthday. Said it would keep me strong enough to survive anything." "Did it work?" Jungwoo's smile was sharp and sad. "I'm still here." "She's not. I'll let you decide." The kitchen filled with the savory aroma of anchovy broth and sesame oil as he worked. Lauren watched his hands, dangerous hands that had probably broken bones and signed death warrants, move with surprising gentleness through the domestic ritual. It was jarring and somehow perfect. Seeing this side of him she'd forgotten existed beneath the crime lord exterior. "You used to cook for me," she said quietly. That first month we were together, before you hired the chef. You remember that? He glanced up, something vulnerable flickering across his features. You made me breakfast every Sunday. Lauren felt herself smiling at the memory. Terrible Western-style pancakes that were somehow burned and undercooked at the same time. You served them with this completely straight face, like you hadn't just committed crimes against breakfast food. They weren't that bad. Jung-woo protested, but his lips twitched. They were inedible. I fed half of them to that stray cat in your garden when you weren't looking. I knew about the cat. He stirred the soup with slow, deliberate circles. I also knew the pancakes were terrible, but you ate them anyway because you didn't want to hurt my feelings. And I kept making them because watching you try to be polite was the most charming thing I'd ever seen. He adjusted the heat beneath the pot. I hired the chef specifically so I'd stop torturing you with my Western cooking. Lauren laughed, then winced as her ribs objected. Jung-woo was around the island instantly, his hand hovering near her side with barely restrained concern. I'm fine, she said. Just sore. Laughing isn't recommended. Then I'll try to be less amusing. But he didn't move away. Instead, his fingers ghosted over her rib cage through her shirt feather-light, testing for reaction. May I? She nodded, and he carefully lifted the hem of her borrowed shirt just enough to reveal the bruising that had bloomed across her side in shades of purple and yellow. His jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. I should have broken his hand, Jung-woo said quietly. Should have made sure he never touched anything beautiful again. You're still planning to destroy him financially. That's worse for someone like Vince. Not worse enough. His thumb traced the air above the worst of the bruising, not quite touching. Does it hurt when you breathe? Only when I breathe deeply. Lauren caught his wrist gently. I'm okay, Jung-woo. We're okay. He looked up at her, and the raw protectiveness in his eyes made her breath catch, which immediately made her ribs hurt again, which made him notice, which started the whole concerned cycle over. She would have laughed if it wouldn't have caused more pain. Come here, he said finally, guiding her off the stool with careful hands. The soup needs to simmer anyway. There's something that might help. He led her to an adjoining room she'd missed on her earlier exploration, a spa-like bathroom with a soaking tub large enough to qualify as a small pool. While she stood uncertain in the doorway, Jung-woo started running water, adding salts that turned it milky and filled the air with eucalyptus. Heat will help with the soreness, he said, adjusting the temperature with his hand under the stream. Epsom salt for the inflammation. 20 minutes should... He stopped, suddenly looking uncomfortable. Unless you'd rather I leave. I'm not trying to, this isn't... Stay, Lauren said, surprising herself. Please. I don't want to be alone right now. His shoulders relaxed fractionally. He stepped into the hallway while she changed into the swimsuit someone had thoughtfully left on the counter, probably Min Jun's work, because the man seemed to anticipate needs before they were voiced. When she called him back in, she was already in the water, the heat working immediate magic on her battered muscles. Jung-woo sat on the edge of the tub, rolled sleeves revealing forearms marked with scars she'd traced 100 times before. He was quiet for a long moment, just watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. I used to do this, he said finally. Watch you in the bath. You'd let me wash your hair and you'd fall asleep sometimes, right there in the water, like you finally felt safe enough to let your guard down. I did feel safe. Lauren leaned her head back against the tub's edge. That was the problem. I felt so safe with you that I forgot to be scared of the danger. And then one day someone left a dead bird on my car windshield with a note in Korean, and reality crashed in. That was meant for me. A message from a rival. Jung-woo's expression darkened. They knew targeting you would hurt me more than any direct threat, and they were right. So I ran. Lauren closed her eyes. I convinced myself that the danger was the problem, but really I was just terrified of how much power you had over me. How completely I'd given myself to someone whose world I didn't understand. And Vince seemed safer. Vince seemed controllable, predictable. She opened her eyes to find Jungwoo watching her with devastating focus. I thought I could rebuild my life with someone who fit into normal society. Someone whose biggest risk was a bad quarterly report. How did that work out? He stole my work and pushed me into a display case while I was 7 months pregnant with another man's baby. Lauren managed a bitter smile. So, not great, actually. Jungwoo reached into the water and found her hand beneath the surface, his fingers lacing through hers. I would have given you predictable if you'd asked. I would have walked away from all of this, the business, the power, everything, if it meant keeping you. Would you really? Lauren squeezed his hand. Because I don't think I could have lived with myself knowing I'd made you give up who you are. Then we were at an impasse. His thumb traced circles over her knuckles. You needed me to be less dangerous. I needed you to accept my darkness. Neither of us could compromise without losing ourselves. Maybe we were both wrong, Lauren said quietly. Maybe the answer isn't you changing or me accepting. Maybe it's building something new that doesn't require either of us to sacrifice who we are. Jungwoo was quiet for a long moment, studying their intertwined hands beneath the milky water. Then he stood and reached for a small bottle on the shelf, something that smelled like lavender and chamomile. Turn around, he said softly. Lauren shifted in the tub, and a moment later felt his hands in her hair, working the oil through with the same careful precision he'd used for chopping vegetables. His fingers massaged her scalp in slow circles, and she felt herself melting under the attention. I missed this, he murmured. Taking care of you. Being allowed to touch you without wondering if it was the last time. It won't be, Lauren heard herself say. The last time. I don't want to run anymore. His hands stilled for just a moment, then resumed their gentle work. Then don't, he said simply. Stay. Let me protect you. Let me love you the way I should have before openly, honestly, without trying to hide the monster parts. Lauren leaned back into his touch, letting 6 months of loneliness finally release. Okay, she whispered. Okay. When she finally emerged from the bath, pink and relaxed, Jungwoo wrapped her in a towel so soft it felt like clouds, and led her back to the kitchen where the soup was ready, perfect, healing, made with hands that could destroy or nurture depending on what was needed. He served her in silence, then sat across from her at the island, and they ate together like they'd done 100 times before, like coming home after a long journey through foreign territory. Evening settled over the estate like expensive velvet, and Lauren found herself in what Jungwoo called his work office, a room dominated by floor-to-ceiling screens and technology that probably cost more than a luxury sedan. He'd set her up on the leather sofa with tea and blankets, while he handled what he vaguely termed business correspondence, which she suspected meant coordinating various illegal activities across multiple time. Sonus, can I ask you something? Lauren said, breaking the comfortable silence that had stretched between them for the past hour. Jungwoo looked up from his laptop, his face illuminated by the blue glow of multiple monitors. Always. When you said you knew about Vince stealing my work, how did you know? I never told anyone the specifics. His expression shifted, becoming carefully neutral in a way that meant he was deciding how much truth to share. I've had people monitoring Vince for 2 weeks after you started dating him. Standard background check initially making sure he wasn't dangerous. Then the check revealed some interesting patterns. What kind of patterns? Jungwoo closed his laptop with deliberate precision and crossed to where she sat. The kind where a mid-level consultant with mediocre performance reviews suddenly starts pitching revolutionary market analysis to venture capitalists. He settled into the chair across from her. The kind where that analysis matches word for word in some sections a proposal found in deleted files on your laptop from 3 months earlier. Lauren felt her stomach twist. She'd suspected, of course, had known in her bones that the business plan Vince presented to investors was too similar to her own work to be coincidence. But hearing it confirmed, knowing someone else had seen the theft documented in black and white, made it real in a way that hurt. I have copies, Jungwoo continued quietly. Your original proposal with timestamps and metadata proving authorship. His pitch deck with matching content. Bank records showing the investment money he received $2.3 million based on your intellectual property. He leaned forward. I've been sitting on this evidence for 4 months, waiting for the right moment to destroy him with it. Why wait? Lauren heard the bitterness in her own voice. Why not expose him immediately? Because you hadn't asked me to. Jung-woo's eyes held hers. This is your work, your intellectual property, your revenge to claim. I wasn't going to take that from you by acting without permission. He paused. But if you want it back, if you want to reclaim what he stole, I can make that happen tonight. Lauren's hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, where her daughter was doing what felt like gymnastics. Everything Vince had, everything he'd built, was constructed on foundations he'd stolen from her. The investors, the networking opportunities, the social status he'd flaunted at the boutique, all of it purchased with her ideas, her research, her late nights, and exhausted brilliance. I want it back, she said, her voice steady. All of it. Every dollar he made from my work. Jung-woo's smile was sharp and dangerous and absolutely beautiful. Then let's go hunting. He moved to his desk and powered up what looked like a specialized workstation, multiple monitors flickering to life with interfaces Lauren didn't recognize. Within moments, he had Min-jun on video call, along with a young woman whose face was partially obscured by pink-tinted glasses and vibrant purple hair. Lauren, meet Ji-hye, Jung-woo said. Best data forensics specialist in 3 countries, and the only person I trust with financial operations this delicate. Ji-hye waved cheerfully. Hi. I've been waiting for permission to destroy this asshole for months. Mr. Park's been very patient, but I've had the exploit ready since October. Exploit? Lauren asked. Security vulnerability in Vince's financial management software. Ji-hye explained, her fingers already flying across a keyboard Lauren couldn't see. He uses the same password for everything his dog's name, plus his birth year, which is embarrassingly predictable for someone who claims to be a business genius. Her screen filled with what looked like banking interfaces. His accounts are about as secure as a cardboard box. This will take maybe 15 minutes. Lauren watched, mesmerized, as Ji-hye worked through layers of security that apparently weren't actually secure at all. Numbers appeared on screen, account balances, investment portfolios, holdings in various ventures. The total made Lauren's breath catch. 4.7 million, Jung-woo said quietly, reading the sum over her shoulder. That's the current total liquid assets. The 2.3 million initial investment has grown considerably thanks to your market analysis being extremely accurate. That's mine, Lauren whispered. That's all based on my work. Then take it back. Jung-woo's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. Ji-hye has already set up an offshore account in your name, completely legal, properly structured, untraceable to either of us. Say the word and every dollar Vince has disappears into your control. Lauren thought about the past 6 months, struggling to pay rent, skipping meals to save money. Watching her savings evaporate while her belly grew and her former fiancé built an empire on stolen foundations. She thought about him shoving her in that boutique, laughing at her poverty, his poverty, when he'd been the one who'd created it by taking everything she'd worked for. Do it, she said. Ji-hye's grin was feral. Music to my ears. Boss, you want to do the honors, or should I? Jung-woo looked at Lauren. Your revenge. Your button to push. He guided her to the desk, pulled up a chair, and placed her hand on the mouse. On screen, Ji-hye had isolated a single command, a transfer protocol that would move every accessible dollar from Vince's accounts into the secure holding she'd established. 1 click, Ji-hye said. Everything he has becomes everything you have. He'll wake up tomorrow morning completely broke. Lauren's finger hovered over the mouse button. She thought about justice, about fairness, about the fact that this was technically theft, even if it was theft of stolen property. Then she thought about her daughter, about building a future that didn't require her to bow to men who hurt her, about reclaiming the power that had always belonged to her. She clicked. The screens erupted in activity numbers cascading, accounts emptying, transfers executing with mechanical precision. Lauren watched $4.7 million vanish from Vince Perkins's life and reappear in an account bearing her name. The whole process took 93 seconds. Done, Jihei announced. His accounts are zeroed. His credit cards will decline within the hour. His automatic payments will start bouncing by tomorrow morning. She leaned back with satisfaction. He's going to have a very interesting day. What about the investors? Lauren asked. The people who gave him money based on my proposal. Are they going to come after me? They're going to come after him, Jung-woo said. Because tomorrow morning, they're also receiving an anonymous package containing your original proposal with timestamps, his plagiarized version, and a detailed forensic analysis proving the theft. He pulled up another screen showing prepared documents. They'll know exactly who the real genius is, and they'll know Vince Perkins is a fraud. Min-jun spoke up from his video window. We've also prepared evidence packages for the business journals, his current girlfriend's father who happens to be one of his major investors, and the district attorney's office. Intellectual property theft is a prosecutable offense. Lauren stared at the screens, at the evidence of Vince's complete destruction laid out like a strategic military operation. This is going to ruin him. Yes, Jung-woo said simply. That's the point. He stole from you, built his life on your work, then tried to humiliate and harm you when you were at your most vulnerable. His hand found hers. This is justice, Lauren. This is you taking back what was always yours. He's going to know it was me. Let him know. Jung-woo's smile was cold. Let him know exactly who destroyed him. Let him spend whatever's left of his miserable life understanding that you don't steal from brilliant women and get away with it. He squeezed her hand. Let him know that touching you was the worst mistake he ever made. Jihei was already disconnecting, her pink glasses reflecting the satisfied completion of a job well done. Min-jun signed off with a slight bow, and Lauren sat in the quiet office, her hand still on the mouse. $4.7 million heavier and feeling like she'd just reclaimed something far more valuable than money. She'd reclaimed herself. Thank you, she said quietly. Jung-woo turned her chair to face him, his hands gentle on the armrests. Don't thank me. You did this. Your work, your intelligence, your right to justice. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. I just provided the tools and the motivation to watch someone I hate suffer magnificently. Lauren laughed, then winced as her ribs protested. But the pain felt distant now, overshadowed by the brilliant satisfaction of knowing that tomorrow morning, Vince Perkins would wake up to discover that karma had arrived with a vengeance and a very good hacker. What happens now? She asked. Jung-woo's expression turned serious. Now we wait for him to realize what's happened. And then we prepare for him to do something spectacularly stupid. He helped her to her feet. Desperate men make desperate moves. And Vince is about to become very, very desperate. CTA. Vince stole her ideas and called it his success. If you hate thieves and liars, smash that like button. Comment credit where it's due if you despise scammers like Vince. Lauren woke to the sound of notifications exploding from somewhere in the estate, multiple phones buzzing in rapid succession like a swarm of electronic insects. Sunlight streamed through the bedroom windows where she'd finally agreed to sleep properly instead of camping on the sofa. For a moment, she'd forgotten where she was. Then memory returned with the weight of yesterday's revenge still warm in her chest. She found Jung-woo in his office, surrounded by Min-jun and two other operatives she vaguely recognized from the boutique rescue. All of them were watching the wall of monitors, with expressions ranging from grim satisfaction to barely concealed amusement. It started, Jung-woo said without turning around. He'd clearly been awake for hours, maybe all night, orchestrating whatever digital apocalypse was currently unfolding across the screens. Lauren moved closer and felt her breath catch. Every monitor displayed a different source: news websites, social media platforms, business journals, financial forums, and every single one was talking about Vince Perkins. Business Insider broke it first, Min-jun explained, pulling up the article on the main screen. The headline read, Tech consultant's meteoric rise built on stolen IP. Exclusive documents reveal systemic fraud. Below it, a photo of Vince at some networking event, all confident and expensive suit, looking like a success incarnate. They received the full evidence package at 6 a.m., Jung-woo said. By 6:15, their investigative team had verified the timestamps and metadata. By 7, they'd confirmed the story with 3 of Vince's investors who were very unhappy to learn they'd been defrauded. He scrolled through the article with clinical precision. They published at 7:42. It's been escalating since then. Lauren read over his shoulder, watching her stolen work laid bare for the business world to see. The article included side-by-side comparisons of her original proposal and Vince's pitch deck, highlighting identical phrasing, matching financial projections, even the same typo in one of the footnotes. The evidence was damning and irrefutable. "Twitter is having a field day," one of the operatives said, pulling up a feed where number Vince Perkins fraud was trending in 3 countries. Lauren watched tweets scroll past business professionals expressing outrage, former colleagues sharing their own stories of Vince's questionable ethics, and a particularly viral thread from someone who'd gone to business school with him detailing a history of plagiarism and cheating. His girlfriend found out about the money this morning, Minjun added with barely suppressed satisfaction. She's the one who leaked the infidelity evidence. Wait, what? Lauren turned to Jung-woo. I thought we were just exposing the business fraud. We were. Jung-woo's smile was razor sharp. But when Charlotte, that's her name, Charlotte Vanderberg, daughter of Edmund Vanderberg, who happens to be Vince's primary investor, when Charlotte checked her boyfriend's suddenly empty bank accounts this morning, she decided to do some investigating of her own. He pulled up a new screen showing Instagram stories. She found some interesting photos on his phone. The Instagram stories were a masterclass in public humiliation. Charlotte had posted screenshots of text messages between Vince and at least 3 other women, all time-stamped during their relationship. Each post was captioned with variations of, "This is what fraud looks like in your personal life too. And when you steal money and cheat, you lose everything." She has 2 million followers, Minjun noted. Most of them are in the same social circles Vince was trying to infiltrate. He's effectively blacklisted from every networking event, charity gala, and business opportunity in the city. Lauren watched more content flood in TikTok videos dissecting the scandal, LinkedIn posts from investors distancing themselves from Vince, even a trending Reddit thread where people were digging up every questionable business decision he'd ever made. The internet had found a villain and was systematically destroying him with the efficiency of a digital firing squad. CNN Business just picked it up, another operative announced. A new screen activated showing a cable news segment with the Chiron consultant accused of multi-million-dollar IP theft. A legal expert was explaining the potential criminal charges Vince could face: fraud, theft of intellectual property, securities violations if any of his investor pitches constituted misrepresentation. His lawyer released a statement 20 minutes ago, Jung-woo said, pulling up the document. Lauren read the generic denial claims of misunderstanding, promises to cooperate with any investigation, barely veiled threats about defamation lawsuits. It's already been torn apart by actual legal experts on Twitter. He's not helping himself. Lauren's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to find dozens of missed calls and messages from people she hadn't heard from in months. Former colleagues, business school friends, even a few journalists requesting interviews. One message stood out, from her former business partner, Sarah. Lauren. Holy shit. I knew that was your work when I saw his pitch last year. Are you okay? Call me. We should talk about reviving the original proposal together. You're going to get a lot of those, Jung-woo said, watching her face. People who suspected but couldn't prove it. People who want to align themselves with the victim instead of the villain. People who see an opportunity to work with the actual genius behind the analysis. He turned to face her fully. You're about to become very visible in the business world. How does that feel? Lauren wasn't sure how to answer. Part of her felt vindicated. The truth was finally public, her work finally credited to its actual author. But another part felt exposed. vulnerable, like she'd traded Vince's private theft for very public scrutiny. Charlotte's father just released his own statement. Minjun interrupted, pulling up a press release on official Vanderberg Holdings letterhead. He's suing Vince for fraud and demanding return of his full investment plus damages. He's also... Minjun's expression shifted to something like respect. He's offering Lauren a formal apology and requesting a meeting to discuss potential investment in her original business proposal. Edmund Vanderberg wants to meet with me. Lauren's voice came out higher than intended. The man was a venture capital legend, the kind of investor people spent years trying to get 5 minutes with. He wants to invest in you, Jungwoo corrected. The woman whose market analysis was so brilliant it convinced him to put in $2 million even when it was being presented by a mediocre fraud. He showed her the full statement, which included phrases like exceptional analytical mind and the kind of visionary thinking we look for in long-term partnerships. More notifications flooded in. The Wall Street Journal had published a deep dive. Forbes was running a feature on intellectual property theft in the consulting industry, using Vince as the cautionary tale. Someone had created a Wikipedia page for the scandal. LinkedIn was exploding with posts about business ethics and giving credit where credit is due. His company is dropping him, one of the operatives announced, showing an email that had leaked to the press. Effective immediately. They're citing conduct inconsistent with company values and cooperating with all investigations. Lauren watched Vince's entire life disintegrate across a dozen screens. His money was gone. His reputation was destroyed. His relationship had imploded publicly and spectacularly. His career was over. Even his apartment lease was probably in jeopardy once the landlord saw the news coverage. He tried to call you, Jungwoo said quietly, showing her his own phone where he'd apparently intercepted calls to her number. 47 times since 7 a.m. Minjun's team has also intercepted 3 attempts to physically come to your old apartment. What did you do? Reminded him that restraining orders exist and that showing up at your residence after committing assault would be very bad for his already catastrophic legal situation. Jungwoo's expression was cold. He's desperate, Lauren. Dangerous. This is where men like him stop calculating and start acting in pure panic. As if summoning him with words alone, a new notification appeared, a video posted to Vince's social media accounts. Minjun pulled it up on the main screen, and Lauren felt her stomach twist at the sight of her ex-fiancé, disheveled and clearly unraveling, filming himself from what looked like his apartment. This is character assassination, Vince said into the camera, his voice cracking. I'm being destroyed by a vindictive ex who can't handle that I moved on. Lauren James is working with he gestured wildly, with dangerous people to ruin my life because I broke up with her. None of this is real. The documents are fabricated. The timestamps are fake. This is a coordinated attack by... He's making it worse, Minjun said with clinical observation. Everything he's saying can be disproven with forensic analysis. And now he's also accusing Lauren of conspiracy, which gives her grounds for defamation claims. The video continued with Vince spiraling further into paranoia, claiming shadowy forces were targeting him, that powerful people wanted him destroyed for knowing too much, that this was all part of some larger conspiracy. He looked genuinely unhinged, and the comments below the video reflected that people calling him delusional, laughing at his desperation, pointing out that innocent people don't usually respond to fraud allegations with conspiracy theories. He's going to do something stupid, Jungwoo said, his voice tight with certainty. Today, maybe tonight, but soon. Men with nothing left to lose stop caring about consequences. Lauren watched Vince's video play out, watched the final destruction of a man who'd built his throne on stolen foundations, and felt something cold settle in her chest that might have been satisfaction or might have been dread. What do we do? Jungwoo's hand found hers, warm and steady against the growing chaos on screen. We prepare for war, he said simply, because he's about to bring it to our door. Vince's reputation just got destroyed by his own actions. If you believe in karma and consequences, hit that like button. Comment, truth wins if you're here for justice being served. The first gunshot shattered a window in the east wing at 11:47 p.m. Lauren was in the bedroom, half asleep with her hand resting on her belly, when the sound jolted her upright. For a disorienting moment, she thought she'd dreamed it a nightmare left over from the boutique, from Vince's hand connecting with her ribs. Then the second shot came, and the estate's alarm system screamed to life with a sound like mechanical fury. Jungwoo was through the door before the third shot finished echoing. He was already dressed, already moving with the kind of controlled urgency that meant he'd been awake, waiting, expecting this. Behind him, Minjun appeared with body armor and a tactical vest that he was strapping onto his boss with practiced efficiency. "Stay here," Jungwoo said, his voice cutting through the alarm's wail. "Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or Minjun." What's happening? But Lauren already knew. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the cold calculation in his eyes. It's Vince. He brought friends. Jungwoo was checking a handgun with movements so familiar they looked like meditation. 3 vehicles, 8 people, maybe more. They breached the outer gate 4 minutes ago. He crossed to her in 3 strides, pressed a kiss to her forehead that felt like both reassurance and goodbye. "I told you desperate men do desperate things." Another shot, closer this time. Glass breaking somewhere on the first floor. Voices shouting in Korean, coordinated and professional. These weren't just Vince's desperate flailing, this was organized, funded, planned. "The panic room," Minjun said from the doorway. "Mr. Park, we need to move her now." Jungwoo lifted Lauren before she could protest, carrying her through hallways that had transformed from luxury estate into war zone. They passed operatives taking positions, checking weapons, coordinating over radios with clipped military precision. The house she'd slept peacefully in hours ago had become a fortress preparing for siege. The panic room was hidden behind what looked like a decorative wall panel in Jungwoo's office. Minjun pressed his palm to a scanner, and the wall slid open to reveal something that looked less like a room and more like a high-tech bunker, reinforced walls. Independent ventilation, monitors showing every angle of the estate's security cameras, and enough supplies to survive for days if necessary. "Stay inside," Jungwoo said, setting her down gently on the leather sofa that occupied one corner. "Don't come out until I come for you." "If I don't come..." He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Minjun has extraction protocols. He'll get you out safely." "Don't you dare." Lauren grabbed his vest, pulling him close. "Don't you dare act like you're not coming back." His smile was sharp and sad and absolutely certain. "I've survived worse than this. I've survived worse than him." He cupped her face with both hands, thumbs tracing her cheekbones like he was memorizing her features. "But I need to know you're safe before I can focus on making sure he never threatens you again." The sound of gunfire erupted from somewhere below automatic weapons. Multiple shooters, the distinct percussion of a tactical assault. Jungwoo's expression hardened into something Lauren recognized from the boutique, from every moment when his protection instincts overrode everything else. "I love you," he said simply. "Remember that, no matter what happens next." Then he was gone. Minjun sealing the panic room door behind them with a hydraulic hiss that sounded final. Lauren found herself alone in the reinforced silence, her daughter kicking against her ribs as if sensing her mother's terror, while on the monitors above her, war came to their sanctuary. The cameras showed Jungwoo's men engaging attackers throughout the estate, muzzle flashes in darkened hallways, tactical movements through rooms Lauren had walked through peacefully just hours ago. She watched Jungwoo himself moving through the chaos with lethal precision, directing his people, returning fire. Everything about him transformed from the man who'd cooked her soup into something deadly and efficient. Then she saw Vince. He appeared on the south entrance camera, stumbling through the breached doorway with a gun held in shaking hands and a wild desperation in his eyes that made him look genuinely unhinged. He wasn't dressed for tactical assault, still wearing what looked like the same clothes from his conspiracy theory video, disheveled and manic. He looked like a man who'd lost everything and decided to drag the world down with him. "Where is she?" His voice came through the monitor's audio feed. shrill and breaking. "I know she's here. Lauren, this is your fault. All of this is your fault." Two of Jung-woo's operatives moved to intercept him, but Vince fired wildly, bullets going wide but forcing them to take cover. He advanced through the foyer like a hurricane of rage and desperation, screaming accusations that deteriorated into incoherent threats. Jung-woo appeared from the west corridor, and even through the camera, Lauren could see the cold fury in his expression. He moved toward Vince with deliberate steps, his own weapon raised but not firing, like he wanted this confrontation personal rather than tactical. "Perkins." Jung-woo's voice carried over the chaos. "Drop the gun. You destroyed me." Vince swung his weapon toward Jung-woo, his aim unsteady. "You took everything. My money, my reputation, my life. For what? For her? For some pregnant whore who—" He didn't finish the sentence. Jung-woo closed the distance between them in a blur of movement, disarming Vince with brutal efficiency and driving him to the marble floor with a force that made Lauren wince. Within seconds, two operatives had Vince's arms pinned, his face pressed against the cold stone while Jung-woo stood over him with the kind of stillness that preceded violence. "Say her name like that again," Jung-woo said quietly, "and they won't find enough of you to prosecute." Vince laughed, a broken, desperate sound that echoed through the foyer. "You think this is over? You think I'm alone in this?" He twisted his head to look up at Jung-woo, and even through the camera, Lauren could see the manic satisfaction in his expression. "I had help, funding, resources, someone who wants you destroyed as much as I do." Jung-woo went very still. "Who?" "Yang." Vince spat the name like a curse. "Victor Yang, your rival, your enemy. He approached me 2 weeks ago, after my accounts emptied, offered me money, weapons, men, everything I needed to hurt you the way you hurt me." His laugh turned hysterical. "He's the one who told me about your estate, about your security weaknesses, about the pregnant bitch you've been hiding here." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Jung-woo crouched beside Vince, his face an inch away, and when he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but Lauren heard every word through the monitor. "Victor Yang sent you here? Used you as a distraction?" Jung-woo's smile was terrible. "Then you're not the main assault, Perkins. You're the bait. And you just told me exactly who I need to destroy next." Alarms erupted from a different section of the estate, the north perimeter, where the surveillance had been suspiciously quiet. On the monitors, Lauren watched new vehicles approaching, professional teams moving with military precision that made Vince's desperate assault look like amateur theater by comparison. Jung-woo stood, gesturing to his men. "Lock Perkins in the detention room. Call the authorities, let them collect him for assault, trespassing, and attempted murder." He was already moving, already coordinating with Min-jun over the radio. Victor Yang just declared war, and he used this pathetic fool to deliver the message. The last thing Lauren saw before the monitor feed switched angles was Vince being dragged away, still screaming threats that nobody was listening to anymore. His revenge had failed. His desperate gambit had crumbled. And now he was just another pawn removed from a board where much more dangerous players were making their moves. Vince refuses to accept his defeat and tries to hurt Lauren again. If you can't stand sore losers who resort to violence, subscribe now. Comment, "Justice served" if you want to see Vince pay. The north perimeter exploded at exactly midnight. Lauren watched it happen on the monitors, a coordinated breach that made Vince's desperate assault look like a child throwing a tantrum. 6 vehicles, professional operatives moving in tactical formation, suppressed gunfire that spoke of military training and expensive equipment. This wasn't revenge. This was an execution. Victor Yang had come to finish what Vince had started. The panic room shuddered as something heavy detonated near the main house. Dust filtered down from the reinforced ceiling, and Lauren's hand instinctively moved to shield her belly as her daughter kicked in protest. On the screens above, she watched Jung-woo's world transform into a war zone, his men taking defensive positions, returning fire from fortified locations, the estate's elegant architecture becoming cover and concealment. She found him on camera 3, directing operations from what looked like a secondary command center. Even through the grainy feed, she could see the cold calculation in his movements, the way he pointed and his people moved like extensions of his will. This was the side of him she'd run from 6 months ago, the crime lord, the strategist, the man who commanded violence with the same precision other men commanded boardrooms. But now, watching him fight to protect her, she understood what she'd been too scared to see before. This darkness wasn't cruelty. It was survival. It was the armor he wore so the people he loved didn't have to. An explosion rocked the east wing closer this time. The monitors flickered, and Lauren's heart stopped until they stabilized. She counted the screens showing Yang's forces. At least 20 operatives, maybe more, moving through the estate with systematic efficiency. They were clearing rooms, neutralizing resistance, advancing toward the center where the panic room was hidden. They were coming for her. Her phone buzzed a text from Minjun. "Stay inside. Do not open the door for anyone. Mr. Park has this under control." But the monitors told a different story. Jungwoo's team was outnumbered, being pushed back, losing ground with each passing minute. She watched him take out 2 of Yang's men with precise shots, watched him drag a wounded operative to safety. He watched him fight like a man who knew losing meant more than death. It meant failing to protect the woman and child he'd promised to keep safe. Lauren's vision blurred with tears that she refused to let fall. She couldn't break down. Not now. Not when he was out there bleeding for her. The panic room was designed for extended stays. There was food, water, medical supplies, even a small bathroom behind a privacy screen. But what caught Lauren's attention was the file box tucked beneath the sofa, labeled simply, "Emergency Documents," in Jungwoo's precise handwriting. She pulled it out, needing something to do with her hands besides watching the man she loved fight for his life. Inside were papers organized with the same meticulous care he applied to everything. Passports with various names, bank account information for offshore holdings, escape routes mapped out with backup plans for the backup plans. And underneath it all, a manila envelope with her name written across the front. Lauren's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a property deed, a house, purchased 4 months ago, registered in her name. The address was familiar. The quiet neighborhood she'd mentioned once, in passing, during one of their early conversations. The kind of place with good schools and parks, where children could grow up without armed guards and bulletproof glass. There was a note in Jungwoo's handwriting, dated 2 weeks after she'd left him. "Lauren, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong and I'm either dead or unable to protect you myself. The house is yours, paid in full. No connections to me or my business that could put you at risk. There's a trust fund attached, separate document, that will provide for you and our child for life. You'll never have to depend on anyone again. You'll never have to be afraid. Build the normal life you wanted. Give our daughter everything I couldn't. I love you both more than I know how to say. J.W." A sob escaped before Lauren could stop it. He'd been planning her escape even while hoping she'd stay. He'd been preparing to let her go safely, completely, with enough resources to never look back. This was what love looked like in Jungwoo's language, not flowers and poetry, but deeds and trust funds and contingency plans that ensured her survival even if he couldn't. The monitors flared with new activity. Yang's forces had breached the main house. She watched them move through rooms she'd slept in, ate in, learned to love again in. They were methodical, professional, getting closer to the office where the panic room was hidden. Jungwoo appeared on camera 1, falling back with 3 of his men. Blood stained his shirt, his or someone else's. Lauren couldn't tell. He was still moving with purpose, still coordinating, but she could see the exhaustion in his shoulders, the way he favored his left side. He was hurt. He was losing, and he was still fighting. Lauren pressed her hand against the monitor showing his face, wishing she could reach through the glass and pull him to safety. "Come back to me," she whispered. "Please, just come back." Gunfire erupted right outside the office. She watched Yang's operatives breach the door, spreading out with weapons raised. 4 of them, trained and lethal, moving toward where the panic room was concealed. One of them pulled out some kind of scanning device, sweeping it across the walls. They were going to find her. The office door exploded inward in a shower of splinters. Jung-woo came through like a force of nature, taking down 2 operatives before they could react. Minjun was right behind him, covering his flank, their movements synchronized from years of fighting together. It was brutal and efficient and desperate 2 men against impossible odds, buying time measured in heartbeats. Lauren watched Jung-woo fight 3 feet away from where she hid, separated by reinforced steel and bulletproof glass. She watched him take a hit that should have dropped him. Watched him stay standing through pure will. Watched him defend the hidden door like it was the only thing in the world that mattered. Because to him, it was. A 3rd operative appeared in the doorway, weapon raised toward Jung-woo's back. Lauren screamed a warning he couldn't hear. Minjun turned, fired, but not before the operative got off a shot that caught Jung-woo in the shoulder. He went down hard, and Lauren's world tilted sideways. Then the monitors filled with new arrivals, operatives in different tactical gear, moving with coordinated precision. At first, Lauren thought it was more of Yang's people, that this was the final assault. But these teams moved in formation behind Jung-woo's remaining men, reinforcing positions, pushing Young's forces back with professional efficiency. Backup had arrived. She watched the tide turn in real time. Young's operatives, caught between Jung-woo's core team and the reinforcements, began retreating. Within 10 minutes, the gunfire had moved to the outer perimeter. Within 20, it had stopped entirely. The monitors showed the aftermath bodies being cleared, wounded being treated, Yang's surviving men being secured with zip ties and precision. The estate looked like a war zone, but the war was over. And Jung-woo was standing. He appeared on camera 5, swaying slightly, blood soaking through his shirt from the shoulder wound, but upright, alive. He was giving orders to someone off-screen, pointing toward the medical team that had arrived with the reinforcements. Then he turned toward the office, toward where Lauren waited, and even through the grainy security feed, she could see the desperate relief in his eyes. The panic room door's hydraulic locks disengaged with a hiss. Lauren was already moving, already running toward the opening door. Jung-woo stumbled through, and she caught him or he caught her, their arms wrapping around each other with desperate strength while their daughter kicked between them in protest at being squashed. "You're hurt," Lauren sobbed against his chest, feeling the wet warmth of blood soaking into her clothes. "I'm alive," Jung-woo corrected, his voice rough. "We're alive. That's what matters." His hand found her face, tilting it up so he could look at her properly. "I told you I'd come back. You were shot. You were bleeding. She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't put words to the terror of watching him fight for their lives while she hid in safety. "I would fight armies for you," he said simply. "I just did. And I'd do it again tomorrow if that's what keeping you safe requires." Lauren pulled back enough to press the deed against his chest. "I found your contingency plan. The house, the trust fund, the escape route." Jung-woo's expression softened. "You were never supposed to see that unless I was dead. You were planning to let me go. Again. Even after everything. I was planning to give you a choice," he corrected. "Always a choice, Lauren. Even if it kills me to watch you leave." She kissed him then, tasting blood and smoke and survival. When she pulled back, her decision was absolute. "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. You are my home." Her hand covered his over her belly. "We fight together, or we don't fight at all." Jung-woo's smile was exhausted and relieved and absolutely devastating. "Then welcome to the fortress," he murmured, "because this life doesn't get easier. But I swear I'll keep you safe through all of it." Jung-woo is fighting an army to save his family. If you believe love is worth fighting for, hit like. Comment ride or D if you're not a coward who runs away like Vince. 6 months changed everything. Lauren stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of what had once been Jung-woo's war room and was now her office, watching spring paint the estate gardens in shades of cherry blossom pink and new grass green. The scars from Yang's assault had been erased, new windows installed, bullet holes patched, the marble floors polished, until they gleamed like nothing violent had ever happened here. But the changes ran deeper than cosmetic repairs. The estate felt different now, lighter, like it had exhaled after holding its breath for years. Behind her, their daughter Minseo, named for new beginnings, slept in a bassinet that looked absurdly delicate against the room's remaining monitors and security feeds. 3 months old, with her father's dark hair and her mother's stubborn chin, she'd entered the world 2 weeks early, as if impatient to start living. Lauren had labored for 14 hours while Jung-woo paced the private medical suite he'd had installed after the siege, looking more terrified than he'd ever looked, facing armed operatives. "She's perfect," he'd whispered, when the doctor finally placed their daughter in his arms, and Lauren had watched the last of his armor crack open to reveal the man underneath softer, more vulnerable, completely undone by 7 pounds of squirming infant. The door opened quietly, and Jung-woo entered carrying 2 cups of tea and moving with only the slightest hitch in his left shoulder, a reminder of the bullet that had almost cost him everything. He'd been in physical therapy for months, rebuilding strength, and had only recently stopped looking like he might shatter if someone touched him wrong. "She's still sleeping?" he asked, setting Lauren's tea on the desk before crossing to the bassinet with the reverence of someone approaching something holy. "For now. Give her 20 minutes and she'll be screaming like her father's enemies are at the door." Lauren joined him, slipping under his arm to lean against his side. They'd learned to stand like this, close enough to touch, always within reach. Like the siege had rewired something fundamental in both of them about proximity and safety. Jung-woo's laugh was soft. "She has excellent survival instincts." His finger traced Minseo's tiny hand, and she gripped it reflexively in her sleep, making his entire expression transform into something odd. "I still can't believe she's ours." "Believe it. You're changing the next diaper. Fair trade for the 4 a.m. feeding you handled alone while I was on that conference call with Tokyo." He pressed a kiss to Lauren's temple, then gestured to the tablet open on her desk. The final contracts came through. Sterling Innovations is officially registered and operational as of 9 a.m. this morning. Lauren felt something bright and fierce bloom in her chest. Sterling Innovations, her company, built on her original business proposal, funded by her reclaimed money and Edmund Vanderberg's enthusiastic investment, after he'd spent 3 meetings apologizing for unknowingly backing Vince's fraud. The company focused on market analysis and strategic consulting, completely legitimate, with an advisory board that included some of the most respected names in finance. It was everything she dreamed of building, before Vince had stolen her future and Jung-woo had helped her reclaim it. "We're really doing this," she said, scanning the incorporation documents. "Clean business, legal operations, no blood money or questionable dealings." "No blood money," Jung-woo agreed, "though I'm keeping the security detail. Non-negotiable. You're still married to a man with enemies." They'd gotten married 6 weeks after the siege in a private ceremony with Min Jun as witness, and a security team discreetly positioned around the garden where they'd exchanged vows. Lauren had worn a simple dress that accommodated her very pregnant belly, and Jung-woo had cried when she'd walked toward him, actually cried, tears tracking down his face while he'd tried to maintain composure and failed beautifully. "I'm not arguing about security," Lauren said, pulling up the news feed on her tablet. "Especially not after this morning's update." The headline was 6 months old, but still satisfying to read. "Disgraced consultant Vincent Perkins, sentenced to 15 years for fraud, IP theft, and assault." The article detailed his conviction on multiple charges: the intellectual property theft, securities fraud, the assault at the boutique, and attempted murder charges from the estate attack. His cooperation against Victor Yang had earned him a slightly reduced sentence, but not enough to matter. Yang himself had been killed in the siege, caught trying to escape through the north perimeter by Jung-woo's reinforcements. His syndicate had collapsed within weeks, absorbed or destroyed by rivals. The threat that had loomed over them for years had evaporated in a single violent night. Charlotte testified against Vince, Lauren said, reading the article's update section. Said he'd been planning the estate attack for days before Yang approached him with funding. Apparently revenge was always the goal. Yang just provided the means. Let him rot, Jungwoo said without heat. He's exactly where he belongs, and we're exactly where we belong. His hand found hers. Building something real. Something our daughter can be proud of. Minseo chose that moment to wake with the outraged wail of someone who'd been promised milk and found none forthcoming. Lauren scooped her up, settling into the leather chair, while Jungwoo hovered with the practiced anxiety of a new father who still couldn't quite believe nothing catastrophic would happen if he blinked. She's fine, Lauren assured him, adjusting Minseo against her shoulder. You can stop looking like she's about to spontaneously combust. She's so small. Everything is a threat. What if she stops breathing? What if you trust that I've read every parenting book in existence and we're going to be fine? Lauren smiled up at him. Sit, breathe. Your daughter needs you present, not panicking. Jungwoo lowered himself into the chair across from her, but his eyes never left Minseo. I never thought I'd have this. A family. A home that feels like more than a fortress. His voice dropped. Someone who chose to stay even after seeing the worst of me. I didn't see the worst of you, Lauren said quietly. I saw you fight an army because you loved me. I saw you plan my escape even when you wanted me to stay. I saw you become someone who could build legitimate businesses and change diapers and cry at weddings. She shifted Minseo to her other shoulder. That's not the worst of you, Jungwoo. That's the best of you finally having room to breathe. Minjun appeared in the doorway, his knock perfunctory since he'd been given standing permission to interrupt for anything baby-related or business-critical. The Vanderberg meeting is in 30 minutes. Should I push it? We'll be there, Lauren said, already standing. Can you watch Minseo for an hour? The emergency bottle is in the warmer. Minjun's expression shifted from efficient operative to something almost tender, as he took the baby with surprising gentleness. Consider it handled. She and I need to discuss her future self-defense training anyway. She's 3 months old, Jungwoo protested. Never too early to start planning. Minjun was already cooing at Minseo in Korean, completely destroying his intimidating operative image. The meeting with Vanderberg was everything Lauren had worked toward: contracts signed, partnerships formalized, her first major client secured for Sterling Innovations. Vanderberg himself had insisted on working with her specifically, saying he'd spent months regretting being fooled by Vince and wanted to make amends by backing the actual genius. By the time they returned to the office, Minseo was asleep again in Minjun's arms, and the sun was setting over the estate in shades of amber and gold. Lauren stood at the windows with Jungwoo behind her, his arms wrapped around her waist, their daughter sleeping peacefully nearby, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete. We did it, she said softly. We survived. We rebuilt. We won. You won, Jungwoo corrected. You reclaimed your work, your power, your future. I just provided security and extremely mediocre moral support. Lauren turned in his arms, rising on her toes to kiss him properly. You provided everything that mattered. You gave me the space to be scared and the safety to be strong. You let me run and kept me protected. You fought for our family when I couldn't fight for myself. Her hand cupped his face. You loved me through the worst of it, and that made all the difference. Jungwoo pulled her closer, careful of her still recovering body, and rested his forehead against hers. I will love you through whatever comes next, too. The good days and the hard ones. The victories and the setbacks. His thumb traced her cheekbone. That's the deal, Lauren. You're stuck with me now. Good, she whispered, because I'm not going anywhere. Through the windows, the estate gardens bloomed with new life. In the bassinet, their daughter dreamed of whatever 3-month-olds dream about. And in the office that had once coordinated violence, but now coordinated legitimate business ventures, 2 people who'd found each other in darkness stood together in the light they'd built from ashes. 6 months had changed everything. And the best part was just beginning. Lauren reclaimed her life and found true love. If you love a happy ending where the good guys win, make sure you're subscribed. Comment "Love Wins" to show you believe in second chances.